When I was younger, my uncle bought a property in the country for the purpose of raising crops. It was sprawling green land of over 40 acres, with a homestead out the front where my uncle and his family lived. A strange part of the property included an abandoned farmhouse towards the back, which my uncle blocked off. At a family reunion one year when I was 12, I overheard the adults talking about the farmhouse's history. Apparently the original owner had slaughtered his family and even the family pets. His wife was found hanging inside. Before the authorities were alerted, he buried his children and the pets out the back, then shot himself on the patio. My uncle had some dairy cows, horses, and 2 cattle dogs, all of which refused to venture near the farmhouse. I heard him tell my parents that even rodents and insects could not be found there even in a 50-foot radius. My 11-year-old cousin and I were fascinated with the stories and secretly planned to investigate the next day. Even though we both delighted in telling and listening to haunted stories, we were a little apprehensive. Had no clue about the terror we'd discover. Even though our parents warned us to stay away, we snuck off and pretended that we were going to visit the horses. After wandering around, deliberately taking our time, we were soon climbing over the stile and facing the farmhouse. We'd both been chattering and enjoying each other's company, but now the looming building lulled us into silence. It was strange that a misty fog was settled around the farmhouse and a strong sense of foreboding came over me. My cousin was braver than I was and she took off before me, shouting over her shoulder, "Come on, chicken." I swallowed the lump in my throat and followed suit, although I dragged my steps and felt the darkness come over me. As we approached, the stillness made me shiver, while the boarded windows suggested that evil was contained within. I stopped at the front steps while my cousin raced onto the porch. She turned and waved me over to join her. "You go in first," I said. She rolled her eyes, put her hand on the doorknob and then yanked her hand away in fright. The haunted stories were about to come true. Although afraid, I was annoyed with her. "What's wrong?" I asked. She shook her head and turned the knob. Soon I was right behind her and we slowly stepped in. The door creaked loudly and a heavy air swallowed us up. The building was soon silent and we moved towards the stairs. Neither of us spoke, due to the overwhelming fear. We jumped when a dog barked, like an echo, then a shot rang out from what sounded like a void within a memory. We were then distracted by a creepy, creaking noise making our flesh crawl and the hairs on our necks prickle. My cousin whispered, "What is that?" before turning to look behind us. She began to scream and her eyes widened. I turned to follow her gaze and saw a woman hanging from the dusty chandelier. We raced upstairs to escape. We could barely breathe, now crying and clinging to each other. Then more screams came from one of the bedrooms. Trembling uncontrollably, we saw a little boy and girl race out of the room covered in blood. That did it. We bolted straight out the front door, past the hanging woman, all the way back to my uncle's house. We didn't tell anyone, for fear of recrimination.